West Florida is a part of history of the United States that is little known and understood by most Americans. It preceded the Treaty of Paris of 1763 that ended the French and Indian War, where Spain ceded East Florida, which is now Florida, to Britain, and France ceded what is now what we call West Florida to Britain, which are mainly the counties and parishes that extended all the way from the panhandle of Florida to Baton Rouge, the Mississippi River.
West Florida was first settled by the French in 1717. It was colonized by the French, and slowly English settlers began moving in. In 1763, at the end of the French and Indian War, Spain took all of those lands west of the Mississippi and drained by the Mississippi Basin, including New Orleans, and the British were ceded those French claims to the east of the Mississippi River. More British settlers began moving in, and the area was colonized basically by the British at that point. Land grants were given, and many families settled in this area. But in 1779, Don Bernardo Galvez, during the American Revolution, saw an opportunity to take possession of this area for Spain, and he marched troops from New Orleans, taking all of this area all the way up to Jackson, Mississippi. And it became, once again, part of Spanish West Florida. It was held by the Spanish until 1810. Most people think that during the Louisiana Purchase, this area was given to the United States by France. That's not true. This area was claimed by the Spanish, and in fact there was a Spanish fort at Baton Rouge. It controlled that entire area from the Mississippi all the way to Florida below the 30th parallel at that point. There were about 25 troops at Baton Rouge. There was another fort at Bayou Sara above the present-day town of St. Francisville, controlled by about 7 Spanish soldiers. During this period of time, the American settlers who had moved in, along with the British settlers who were fleeing the United States to an area that had been controlled by the British and still considered part of England by them, were settling here and were trying to control their own destiny.
Big Mama's Southern Style Barbecue, Catfish and More introduces the Working Man's Lunch. Sandwich of your choice, a side and a drink for $4.99. Supersize your sandwich for $1 more. Big Mama's Family Meal Deal feeds a family of 4 for $5 per person. Daily specials start at $6.99. Dine in or take out. Good eats at great prices at Big Mama's Barbecue, Catfish and More on John R. Junkin Drive in Natchez.
Need stuff, bring money.
Need money, bring stuff.
Hi folks, Finley Hutzel here for Natchez Pawn and Jewelry. If you have old or broken jewelry, we can turn it into cash. Here at Natchez Pawn and Jewelry, we test your gold while you wait, so we can give you the highest appraisal and pay you in cash. We buy almost anything made of gold, silver, or platinum.
Natchez Pawn and Jewelry, the barracks.
Next to the bowling alley on John R. Junkin Drive.
Everyone agrees pets get the best of care at the Miss Lou Veterinary Clinic. Dr. Debbie and Dr. Veronica and their caring staff can treat any pet, large or small, domestic or exotic. They offer traditional and non-traditional treatments to heal your loved one as fast as possible. Hospitalization and intensive care are available, as well as grooming and best friends boarding when you need someone you can depend on. And they carry a complete line of pet meds and nutritional products at the Miss Lou Veterinary Clinic on the Faraday-Vidalia Highway.
West Florida was never an independent nation per se, but it was considered the 15th colony by many historians and people who relish the American spirit of independence.
The Spanish ruling officials in this area were called alcaldes. They were both judges, sheriffs, the commandant of the military, and they served all of those functions of government which controlled the people here. The government of Spain was so corrupt that the alcaldes typically settled land disputes by voting in favor of whoever gave them the most money. The planners in this area around St. Francisville and the Feliciana parishes got together and decided that they would petition the governor to allow them to appoint their own alcaldes and to elect their own government in order to better organize things and protect their interests.
It was an attempt by the American settlers to declare the independence from Spain, and something we don't know that much about in this place. We understand that the Texicans fought for their revolution against Spain and Mexico, but we never hear about these band of American settlers, but subsequently forced the United States under President Madison to occupy this territory and declare it part of the United States.
Who our Skipwith had been the representative, the consul general to the French government for the United States. He came to this area in 1809 and settled at a place called Monsanto Plantation north of Baton Rouge. He was elected as one of the judges, and Governor de Lassus refused to recognize him because he thought that this was a threat from the United States to take the area over. There were many threats to the area at this time to take government and control away from the Spanish. The British were trying to establish another foothold. The French had emissaries here that were actually had secret meetings in Baton Rouge and were run out of the territory. There were Americans that were wanting to bring this area back into the United States who had steadfastly refused to send troops into the area since 1803, even though they were requesting this to be done constantly. So when all of these things were going on in West Florida by these people trying to establish their own government, Governor de Lassus' concern was more that the French were going to try to come in and take control than the problems that he was going to have with the planners. At this time, he also began to fear the United States because he knew that there were many colonists here that wanted the United States to take over. All these things were playing on him. And so he contacted Governor Foch in Pensacola, who had control of Spanish East Florida, and requested troops be sent to Baton Rouge to help him quell the rebellion. Philmon Thomas, who was a storekeeper in Baton Rouge, had been elected a brigadier general of the West Florida militia. He managed to capture a letter which was directed to Shepherd Brown, who was the alcalde in the St. Helena area, who was also a Spanish loyalist. And he intercepted the letter that was requesting troops and requesting Brown to raise a militia to send to Baton Rouge to put down the planners and this rebellion that he saw. In doing so, Philmon Thomas got together with the other planners, told them what was going on, and that it was time for an open revolt.
And basically was kind of the second American Revolution, but this time against the Spanish.
The major in charge of the Bayou Sara horse, or the dragoons, the cavalry for the Republic of West Florida, marched on the fort at Bayou Sara. They fired on the fort, and Lieutenant Thomas Esteban, who was the Spanish comandante in charge of the fort, loaded all of his 6 soldiers and himself into a boat, gave the fort to the dragoons, and headed for Baton Rouge. When the dragoons marched south from St. Francisville, they did under the flag that had been developed for West Florida, which was an azure blue field with a 5-pointed star. And that 5-pointed star was the Masonic symbol that was recurring throughout the entire revolution, the 5 points of friendship. On September 22nd of 1810, the revolt was over. De Lassus knew that the fort was about to be attacked, and he put the fort on alert. The dragoons were organizing in St. Francisville. Philmon Thomas marched to Springfield, Louisiana, and gathered 44 men who were grenadiers, but basically militia, marched back toward Baton Rouge with them and met up with the 22 dragoons from St. Francisville, as well as about 10 others that made up a force of about 75 men, and marched on Baton Rouge. So before dawn, they massed at the cattle gate and snuck into the fort. Philmont Thomas situated his men so that he occupied the attention of the Spanish soldiers in the fort, but far enough out so that he was out of cannon range. But while they concentrated on him and his troops, the dragoons snuck into the cattle gate, lined up across the parade ground, and at dawn were in a position to control the fort. Lieutenant Louis de Grandpré, the son of the ex-governor, was in control of the infantry within the fort. He saw them and approached them and told them to leave, even going so far as to take his saber out and strike the horses to try to drive them out by himself. When they wouldn't leave, he turned and ordered his men to fire on the dragoons, which they did. Only they didn't kill any of the dragoons, although they did wound several of the horses. But by ordering them to fire on the dragoons, he put himself in the middle between both opposing forces. Isaac Johnson, the major in charge of the dragoons, ordered his people to go ahead and open fire. And in opening fire, the only casualties of the entire revolution were de Grandpré and one soldier, with 4 other Spanish soldiers wounded. When the firing started, Philmont Thomas led his other men into the fort, and the fort was captured. There were about 65 men in the parade ground when Governor de Lassus came into the stockade and was captured. And for 74 days, this was the Republic of West Florida. When the rebellion started, Claiborne, who was the governor of Louisiana and New Orleans, wrote to President Madison and told him of the danger that the United States faced at that point, which was an independent republic between the United States and New Orleans. Now, the entire $15 million that had been paid by Jefferson for the Louisiana Purchase, the whole point of it was to get New Orleans, because New Orleans controlled the mouth of the river and controlled the interior of the United States. Madison decided to go ahead and act. He sent Colonel John Covington, along with a troop of 1 other officer and 33 men, to Point Capee Parish. On December 7th, 1810, Colonel Covington with his troop crossed the river and took the fort at Baton Rouge. This corrected a mistake from his eyes that had occurred when the 15th colony, West Florida, had not seceded from England, had not become part of the United States, and was now made part of the United States by force, ending the Republic of West Florida, which lasted a total of 74 days.
The Spanish then agreed to cede part of what is called West Florida to the United States, as well as East Florida, which is now Florida. So that's how the United States was able to gain that part of the country.
And began a period of expansion of the United States to the west that had become known and has become known now as Manifest Destiny.
And in fact, today, the parishes east of Baton Rouge are still called the Florida parishes, and the bonnet blue flies prominently in all the public facilities.
The story of West Florida is an integral part of the story of America. It is the legacy of the first bold individuals who settled in this part of the world and their can-do attitude, which has made our nation great.